Welcome to this explainer, where we're taking a fascinating, scientifically grounded journey right into the mechanics of our daily digital habits. If you've ever found yourself stuck in a 3-hour doom scroll and wondered why it's just so hard to put your phone down, well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to break down the actual clinical reality of problematic social media use, and we're relying purely on the latest scientific research, psychological scales, and landmark legal cases to do it.
So let's kick things off with a pretty wild question that researchers at Michigan State University set out to answer. Are we actually talking about something comparable to drug addiction? I know, it sounds a bit extreme, right? We usually just think of scrolling through feeds as a totally harmless way to pass the time. But researchers wanted to know, does the brain of an excessive social media user actually mirror the brain of someone with a severe substance use disorder?
To get why researchers are even going there, just think about the sheer scale of the issue. Dharmeshi, the lead author from that MSU study, put it perfectly. Around 1/3 of all humans on the planet are using social media. And while these platforms undeniably connect us, they absolutely have a clinically documented dark side. Some users are displaying what researchers call maladaptive excessive use, meaning it's actively interfering with their daily lives.
Here is our clinical roadmap for this explainer. 1. Social media versus drugs. 2. The dopamine feedback loop. 3. Are you addicted? 4. The real-world consequences. And finally, 5. Strategies for digital recovery. All right. Section 1. Social media versus drugs in the parallels in decision-making. Let's dive right into how our brains actually make choices when we're glued to our screens. To test this, researchers use something called the Iowa gambling task. It's basically a psychological game where subjects pick cards to test their pattern recognition and decision-making. And wow, the results were eye-opening. Excessive social media users showed the exact same kind of decision-making deficiencies as individuals addicted to substances like opioids or cocaine.
The kicker here is that they just kept picking from the bad decks of cards. Basically, just like folks with substance use disorders, heavy social media users demonstrated severely impaired, risky decision-making. They completely failed to learn from their mistakes. So we are seeing a direct, undeniable behavioral link between problematic screen time and severe substance abuse.
Moving right along to Section 2, the dopamine feedback loop and how algorithms hack your brain. Let's see how this behavioral parallel builds into a literal physiological change in our heads. It all boils down to what we call variable reward schedules. You know how a slot machine works, right? You pull the lever. Most of the time, nothing happens. But occasionally, bam, a win. Social media apps literally use this exact same mechanism. They sprinkle in positive stimuli, like a like or a comment, at totally random intervals. This exploits our brain's innate reward prediction error encoding, keeping us trapped in this endless feedback loop, just constantly checking our phones for that next little hit of reward. And guys, this isn't just a behavioral quirk, it is a medical reality. Take a look at this peer-reviewed paper from the Journal of Neurology and Neurophysiology. It shows that constantly stimulating this dopamine reward system actually alters the gray matter density in your brain. So it's not just you lacking willpower, it's a literal chemical shift. That weird, empty disengagement you feel when you put your phone down, yeah, that is caused by an actual drop in dopamine activity. Because it's rooted in our physiology, the parallels to traditional addiction are crazy strong. We're talking about salience, which is when the app totally dominates your thoughts. Then there's tolerance, meaning you literally need more screen time to get that same mood boost. And the wildest part, when that dopamine drops, users go through genuine withdrawal symptoms. We're talking anxiety, terrible sleep, irritability, and of course, relapse. Which brings us to Section 3. Are you addicted? The smartphone addiction scale. Let's check out the clinical criteria and see how we actually measure this stuff in ourselves. So these questions come straight from the short version of the smartphone addiction scale, which is a validated tool psychologists actually use. You rate statements from 1 to 6 based on how true they are for you. Things like, do you misplan work because you're on your phone? Do you struggle to concentrate? Or, get this, do you actually feel physical pain in your wrists or neck while using it? It's literally asking you to evaluate if your habits are causing tangible physical or professional harm. Now, the maximum score on this scale is 60, and you really want to pay attention to these clinical cutoff numbers, 31 for men and 33 for women. If your score hits or goes over those numbers, clinicians warn that you are at serious risk of problematic smartphone use. Kind of makes you want to calculate your own score, doesn't it?
Okay, Section 4, the real-world consequences, tragedies, and legal milestones. Let's see how these neurochemical loops are creating some massive cultural and legal shockwaves out in the real world.
This timeline is absolutely crucial because it tracks a huge shift in how society views these platforms. It starts with the heartbreaking 2017 death of 14-year-old Molly Russell, where a coroner actually cited the negative effects of online content. That tragedy sparked major legislative action, like the UK's Online Safety Bill in 2022. And all of this culminated in a massive, landmark jury verdict in March 2026, KGM v. Meta. In that case, a jury explicitly found that Meta and Google intentionally built addictive platforms that harmed a young plaintiff. We're seeing the consequences move directly from personal struggles right into the courtroom.
But, well beyond the courtroom, the everyday reality for so many people, especially teens, but honestly adults too, includes severe clinical impacts. We're seeing a spiked risk of depression, social anxiety completely driven by FOMO, and tragically eating disorders fueled by photo editing apps pushing these totally unattainable body images. Plus, the way these apps distort time with the endless scroll, it is literally shrinking our attention spans and tanking academic performance.
All right, our final section, Section 5, Strategies for Digital Recovery, Clinical Treatments, and Detox. Fortunately, it's not all doom and gloom. Let's explore some actionable clinical ways to actually get your time back.
When it comes to professional help, clinicians are generally leaning on two primary methods. First up, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. This helps patients pinpoint the underlying thoughts, like loneliness or boredom, that trigger them to reflexively open an app. Then there's dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. This one is all about building distress tolerance. It basically teaches you how to sit with uncomfortable feelings, totally unmedicated by a digital distraction.
Now, if you want to try and reset your own nervous system at home, you need a structured detox, and that means systematically cutting out the triggers. Step 1, do a notification audit. Seriously, turn off everything that isn't absolutely essential. Step 2, create device-free zones in your house, like keep the phone out of the bedroom. Step 3, schedule your screen time, instead of just mindlessly scrolling. And finally, Step 4, get back to analog, manual hobbies. Doing things in the real, physical world actually helps retrain those hijacked dopamine pathways in your brain.
And for the parents out there trying to navigate this minefield with kids, research highlights 3 main strategies: active, restrictive, and co-using. The data is super clear here. Active mediation, which is where you have consistent, ongoing conversations about online norms while still supporting your kids' autonomy, is way more successful at reducing problematic use and aggressive behavior than just throwing down highly restrictive, inconsistent rules.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to just take a second and reflect on your own daily habits. Think about those variable rewards we talked about, those clinical cutoff scores, and the sheer engineering power behind the apps sitting in your pocket. I'll leave you with this one vital question. Who is really in control of your dopamine? You or the algorithm? Thanks so much for learning with us today.